I'm driving my 2006 Honda Civic, and even though this car only has 140 horsepower, which is obviously not that much, it's still a ton of fun to drive, and it actually feels quite fast. There's a couple of reasons why this car feels so fast and why it's so much fun to drive. One of the biggest reasons for that is the weight of this car. It weighs just a little bit more than a Mazda Miata. This thing is crazy light. It weighs just over 2,600 pounds. Ooh, look, there's another Civic. That weight obviously helps with handling and acceleration and just the overall feel of the car when you're in a corner, which feels amazing. This car handles so well. Kind of on that same note, and another reason why this car is so much fun to drive is simply the size of it. This is the Coupe Honda Civic, so obviously it's a little bit smaller than a regular sedan. And the same thing with the weight as well. This weighs a little bit less than the regular sedan version of the Civic, but because this car is so tiny, it feels very nimble in the corners. You can just throw it at whatever you want. It helps with the handling, and also, you know, it's a reason why the weight is so low, but it just makes it a bit more fun to drive. It's not like you're trying to throw a huge car through all these little corners, and especially with the amount of horsepower that it has, it's super helpful to have it just so tiny. It's also just kind of fun to have a tiny car. I don't know exactly what it is, but there's something about just having this little tiny baby little car that's just so much fun. I don't really know why, but I love it. Another thing that helps this car feel very, very fast is how low it is to the ground. It's obviously not sports car low, but it's still quite low, which helps with handling, and it makes it feel like it's going a lot faster. Cruising down the highway at 70 miles an hour feels a lot faster in this than it does in like a regular SUV. When you're driving this car, especially coming from an SUV, because before I bought this, I only ever drove big, tall SUVs, and it feels kind of like a go-kart almost. It's just so low to the ground, really not much body lean or body roll, and every time I drive this car around some fast corners, it always amazes me how fast it can take corners. It's just insane, because this is just a regular car. I bought this for 2,800 bucks, and it's crazy how much fun you can have in something this cheap. Now, this next thing isn't exactly something that helps its speed, but more just makes it more fun to drive. And I guess it kind of makes it feel a little bit faster, but that is that it has a manual transmission. Obviously not every Civic has that, but they're not all that hard to find in a manual. And like I said just a second ago, I paid 2,800 bucks for this car with a manual transmission. It's just awesome. I also recently made a video on 3 reasons why you should buy a car with a manual transmission. I'll put a card to that up in the right top corner up there, and I'll also put a link to that video in the description of this video if you want to check that out, of course, after you watch this one. In theory, since this is a bit of an older car, it's a 2006, with the right driver, you might be able to accelerate a little bit faster than an automatic. Obviously, I can't accelerate all that fast in this car yet. I'm still relatively new to driving a manual. I mean, this is my first car, and this is the first manual I've ever driven, obviously first one I've ever owned. But that's more one of those things that just helps with the fun of the car, you know? Like, in a slow automatic car, you just kind of hit the pedal and you get disappointed. But in this car, or in any slow manual car, you just get to enjoy the act of shifting through your gears, which is so much fun. It just adds to the experience of driving the car, you know? It's so much better. Another thing that this car has that if you know anything about Honda Civics, I'm sure you know about this, and that is the famous VTEC engine. If you do not know what that is, basically once you get really high in the RPMs, I believe on this car it opens up about 5,500 RPM, so it's quite high, it's really up there. But it's really cool how it all works and how they made it actually do that. I can't explain it, I don't know enough about it. It just gives the engine a little bit more power and it makes a lot more noise. I've hit it once in this car, it was really fun, but I probably won't ever do it again because you gotta get way up high in the revs, and that's just kind of scary on such an old car. So yes, you can in fact have fun in a car that only has 140 horsepower. It's nothing too crazy, this car isn't insane in any way, but the amount of fun you can have in a car isn't simply decided by the amount of horsepower that you have. You know, it's how much fun you can have in the corners, how much fun you can have shifting like I just did right there. If you want to see more videos about this car, you can click right here for a playlist about those. And if you want to see a video on 3 reasons why you should buy a car with a manual transmission, you can click right here for that, and I'll see you over there.